Hello, everyone. Super excited to be here at Microsoft Build 2022. Let's go ahead and get into it. We are going to talk about GitHub Codespaces, which are managed cloud environments that developers love, but that have the controls that their admins need. I'm Allison Weins. I'm a senior product manager on the team, and I'm super excited to be able to share with you some of the new developments that Codespace has released and the new controls that will hopefully get your admins on your side and roll this out to your teams. So we're going to start with really just a 5-point agenda here. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview in case this is the first time you've heard about Codespaces. We're going to talk a little bit about how Codespaces can help you develop even faster. We're going to talk just a little bit about the tools that we support. We really want to meet you where you are with the service. And then my two favorite points, we're going to talk about the complex scenarios that we've started to better support, as well as all of the different policies that are available to your admins or team leads to really give them the control and insight that they need to feel great about rolling Codespaces out to their teams. So, what are Codespaces? Codespaces are ephemeral development environments that are created specifically for the projects that they are built for. So effectively, when you have a repository, you have a set of configurations that you need for that particular project. With Codespaces, you are just one click away from developer environments. No longer do you need to clone the repository, set up all your dependencies, manage everything on your local machine. We take care of that for you by creating environments in the cloud available for you to access anywhere and then delete when they're no longer needed. Because as we say on the team, life's too short for local environments. Now, not only do these disposable environments allow you to quickly get set up and reset if you get into weird positions, they're also reducing the time to set up developer environments from something like days to minutes to even seconds in the most optimized cases. As I said, you don't have to download a ton of dependencies, figure out how to set up your Python virtual environment. All of those things are a thing of the past with Codespaces. Simply set up the configuration that you need for your project and we'll take care of the rest. We manage and maintain all of your Codespaces for you so you can access them wherever and whenever you might need them. So with that, let's talk about how we get from days to minutes to potentially seconds. We're super excited to have announced that not only can you create these developer environments with one click, you can also optimize those creations with Prebuilds, which just went into public preview earlier this year. The goal with this feature is really to reduce the time between create to working in your development environment. Without Prebuilds, the GitHub monolith took something like 50 minutes to create. We had to build the Docker image. We had to automatically install those dependencies. We had to run setup scripts. All of that takes time. And even though it's automated, it's still something developers had to wait for. And we knew this wasn't tenable. We had to have some way to get folks to their development environment fast if we were going to convince them to create and throw away as necessary. So Prebuilds is that solution. What we do is we leverage actions to preemptively build a set of Codespaces before your team needs it, so that when they click create, they don't have to wait for a Codespace to be created from scratch. Instead, we grab one that is pre-built, hence the name. We've also allowed you to create these pre-builds by either being triggered by pushes to the repository, specific configuration changes, so if a particular file that specifies the config is changed, or schedule them according to days and times. As I mentioned, it's currently in preview, and we'd love for you to check this out. Now, let's actually take a look at what it takes to set up a prebuild. Okay, here we've got our Save Gene repository. Let's check out how we'd create a prebuild. First, I would just go to the settings for this repository. It's important to note that prebuilds are on a per repository basis. Then we're going to go to our Codespaces tab. And as you can see, we've already got several prebuilds set up. Let's walk through what it takes to set up a new one, though. If you hit the Setup Prebuild, what you're going to do is just simply select a branch that makes sense to you. Choose which regions you would like your prebuild available in. In this case, we'll do it in all regions. And then here are the 3 different triggers that we talked about in the slide. You can either have it pre-build on every push to this branch. So every single change will cause a new pre-build to be created. You can do on configuration change. So this will only trigger new prebuilds when the dev container JSON and other configuration files are updated. And then scheduled, which is our newest trigger. We're super excited to release this. You can either specify weekdays, you can do particular days that you'd like. Maybe you just want Mondays and Thursdays. And you can also choose the time. So if you know your pre-build is going to take a little extra time, maybe you'll set it for after working hours. And you can also select multiples of these. Perhaps you want one to be done in the morning before folks get into work, and perhaps you want one in the evening for other time zones. If you click Create, it goes ahead and sets up that pre-build for you. Another great thing I'd like to point out is that we recently improved our C output. So previously, when pre-builds failed, it was kind of difficult to be able to understand what was going wrong. But now you have an easy UI to be able to search logs and understand where something might have failed, and that allows you to troubleshoot your configuration as you need. Awesome. So now let's talk about using the tools that you and your team love. When Codespaces was first released, we primarily leveraged Visual Studio Code, either the desktop installation or the browser-based version of it, as the 2 main entry points for Codespaces. However, as time went on and as we heard from more of you, we knew that we needed to be able to provide a terminal-based experience. And so in November of last year, we released our integration with the GitHub CLI. Additionally, if you need to automate anything about your Codespaces, you can also leverage our API. We have a few other options we're exploring for editors to support, and we'd love to hear what you think we should enable next so that you can use Codespaces and those cloud environments from whatever environment, or rather whatever editor makes the most sense to you. There's no need to learn a brand new IDE just to be able to leverage the power that is Codespaces. Now, let's dive into how you can use Codespaces to develop across multiple repositories. Previously, Codespaces were primarily optimized for projects that all resided within one repository. If you had another project or, say, service in another repository, that was really difficult. So if you wanted to use multiple repositories, you would have to set that up for yourself. You would have to generate a personal access token with the exact set of permissions. Maybe you need read access to one repository. Maybe you need write to another. And getting that personal access token, or PAT, to be exactly right for your needs was often a case of trial and error. And then once you figured it out, you have to figure out how to tell the rest of your coworkers how to do it for themselves. It was really on a per user basis, and we heard this was a headache. It was a ton of unnecessary overhead. And on top of that, then you as our user have to manage your secrets and determine which code space and which repository can leverage a particular token. It's a lot of permissions to understand, and we just thought there has to be a better way. So now what we've done is we're allowing you to define permissions that you need to other repositories in your dev container definition. So now instead of an individual user having to go and create that access token, you can standardize these permissions at the repository level and allow every person who is creating a code space from that repository to benefit from these automatically requested permissions. So here on the right, you'll see this snippet that goes into your dev container.json. Under our customizations, code spaces, namespace, you'll have the repositories that you need access to. You'll name them and then declare what permissions you'd like. In this case, we're just asking for write permissions to issues, but this could be contents, this could be pull requests, and you could also ask for read or write permissions. And so this way, you're not having individual team members figure out exactly what their personal access token should do. Instead, you codify this into your project so that everyone benefits from the standard configuration and automatically gets, or rather can authorize the permissions that that particular project needs in order to run and be developed in. And as I point out here, this allows Codespaces as the service to automatically manage and update permissions as you update this permission snippet. So let's take a look at what this flow now looks like. All right, so we've got our Save June repository again, and this time I'm on my custom permissions branch. So if we go into our dev container definition, just to peek, you'll see that down here at the bottom, I have included those snippets in order to get permissions to the haikus repository, as well as my really cool repository. For the haikus repository, I'm asking for write permissions to our issues. And for my really cool repo, I'm asking for write permissions to issues and pull requests. Now, you can list out all of the repositories that you need here, but we also support wildcards. So if you need to grant a particular permission to every repository in your organization, you could replace this haikus with an asterisk, and that would indicate that you want this permission to apply to every repository in the org. One limitation here is that you can only list other repositories within your organization. So now that we have this in our dev container definition, we're going to go back to our home page and go ahead and create a new code space. So here we're going to create code space on the custom permissions branch. And so now, as an intermediary step, since this is the first time I'm creating a code space with these permissions, we're going to ask you if you want to authorize these. If you open these up, you'll see exactly what set of permissions we're requesting to each repository. And you have the ability as the user to either authorize and continue or continue without authorizing. And we show this page as a safety measure so that no one can update your dev container with permissions that you aren't aware of. Now, if we click authorize and continue, it will go ahead and continue to create my code space. And instead of having that GitHub token that is only accessing this particular Save June repository, it will now also have access to those other repositories with their specific permissions. Great. Now that we've shown how you can work across multiple repositories, let's talk about choosing the right configuration within a singular repository for you. Previously, if you worked in, say, a mono repo, there was no real way to have multiple configurations for it. You had to have one dev container definition at the root of the repository. And this often led to really bloated catch-all configurations for the repo. Additionally, if you had a list of extensions in there, you might have a really large set that really doesn't apply to every single team. If you worked on the front end, you're getting extensions and dependencies that maybe you don't even really need for your day-to-day work. So it added a lot of clutter and overhead if you worked within a monorepo. Now, we did see folks who would create branches with different configurations as a workaround, but again, that was not quite well supported. It truly was a workaround. And as we think about configurations outside of your dev container definition, you were really only allowed to choose machine type and branch when you were creating your code space. So what we're doing now is allowing you to do a number of things. So number one, we are allowing you to define multiple definitions within the .dev container folder. We support all definitions that follow the pattern of .dev container / a directory name / dev container.json. And this will allow you to create customized configurations for each one of your teams. No longer do you need one catch-all definition that has to work for everyone across your company. You can actually create very specific pared down configurations that work for, say, your front-end team, your docs team, your back-end team, so that each person really gets the definition that's right for their needs. And as I'll show you in a second, we've allowed you to select additional options during creation so that you can not only select the right definition from multiple, but you can also select the branch, the region, and the machine type, because we know that having control over your environment is key for your productivity. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, so let's go ahead and create another code space for this repository. This time I've switched it to our multi-dev container branch. So what you'll see if we go into the .dev container folder is we have one configuration at the root, but then we also have two new folders, one for actions and one for GitHub. So if I click on actions, there is yet another definition. And if I click on GitHub, there's a third one. And if I go back to our home page here and click code, you'll see that I either have the default of creating a code space on multi-dev container, so creating a code space with my default configuration on this branch, or I can click this arrow and actually configure and create my code space. So this will allow me to see more advanced options. And so now I've got this interstitial page that allows me to choose or change my branch. We'll go ahead and go with multi-dev container. And when I open this dropdown, you'll see I have those three options I showed you before. We have our definition at the root, the actions definition, and the GitHub definition. So you can think about organizing your configurations in this way and naming this folder for your teams or the service that this configuration is really created and tailored for. I can also select the region I would like my code space to be in. We automatically choose one that we think makes the most sense based on where you're currently accessing this page, but you have a chance to override. And also you can select the machine type. So everywhere from 2 up to 32 cores. And then it's as simple as just creating your code space. Okay, so we've talked about all the things that you as a developer and maybe a team lead might love. Let's talk a little bit about the admins, the folks who need a little bit more control, who want to make sure that things are secure and costs stay reasonable. Now, there's two main pieces here that we think your admin will love. Number one, the ability to control who can create and use Codespaces within the organization. You have the option to allow all org members, just a select few, or you can even extend the access to outside collaborators. Previously, you wouldn't be able to allow users who weren't a part of your organization to create Codespaces. But we heard from folks who often had outside collaborators that this was key. Maybe they didn't want to give a user access to all of the organization, but they certainly wanted to let them collaborate on a particular repo. And so now with our settings, you can actually enable that. And second, we've started a robust policy program. So these are just 3 of the policies that we've shipped so far, and we've got others coming down the pipeline. The 3 main types are machine type, port visibility, and idle timeout. Let's go ahead and check into how this works in practice. All right, so here we are in our organization. Atari has GitHub, a very cute little dog. And as I was saying, you really have great control over who has permissions to create and by extension, charge your organization for Codespaces. You could disable it for everyone if you need to. You can allow just select users. You can allow for all users, or as I mentioned, you can allow for all members and outside collaborators. Select one and hit save. All right, now let's talk about policies. Here you'll see we don't have any policies yet. If we went to try and create one, you'll see we have those 3 types of constraints that I talked about. Machine type restricts what level of machine each person can create. Port visibility determines whether we can share the port with anyone, with our organization, or just private. And then also max idle timeout. So this is the amount of time a Codespace will stay active, at which point it is charging compute. And so you can change how long that Codespace can stay active. So let's go ahead and show you here what this would be like before we add constraints. So if we configure and create, you'll see that we have access to all of our machine types. We'll go ahead and create that with 4-core, and we will accept those permissions. And then we wait a little while. Well, not a little while, but we gotta wait a few seconds for it to go ahead and build our Codespace for us. And you'll notice here with the feedback, it's letting us know that we're using a pre-built Codespace. It went ahead and downloaded our image, and it's in the process of building our container. And just in a couple seconds here, it's going to connect and refresh the page, showing me my environment. Perfect. Here is our environment exactly as we'd expect. So you saw that we had access to all our machine types. Now we're going to go ahead and actually run this application and demonstrate that we do have access to all the various options for our port visibility. So we're going to go ahead and run. You'll see if we go to our ports view, and I go to port visibility, I have access to all 3 options here. And one thing we heard from many organizations was They didn't mind if folks shared this link with their organization because there was authentication in place, but a public link to a running port made folks a little nervous. So we're going to go ahead and close out of that code space, and we're going to create a new policy here. And we're going to say build policy. Now I'm going to add two main types of constraints. I'm going to add the machine type here. So by default, it limits it to 2, 4, 8, and 16. I'm going to go ahead and say we just want 4 core. And then I'm also going to add a port visibility constraint. And I'm going to say we don't want the ability to allow you to share that publicly. And I'm going to apply that to all repositories in this organization. Now, one thing to note is that these policies only apply to Codespaces created after the policy was saved. So that previous Codespace I created will still be able to share the port publicly because it predated this policy going into effect. However, if I create a new Codespace, if we create a new one, we need to configure and create it. You'll see that I only have the 4 core available to me. In fact, every other one of these is disabled by the organization, which you just saw me set up. So all I can select is 4 core, and I'm going to go ahead and create my Codespace. And again, we see that it's pre-built. It's going to download the image and go through that creation process. Nothing here has changed. All right, looks very familiar, just as we saw last time. We'll give it a second just to finish loading. And then we're going to do the same thing, which is npm run dev. It's running. And if we go to this ports view and we go to port visibility, you'll see we are now missing that public option. And so our constraint is working exactly as we expect it to. Okay, so thank you all so much for tuning in. I hope you learned something new about Codespaces and feel confident to bring this back to your teams, your leads, your admins, and ideally adopt it within your own projects. We are super excited to continue work on this, and you can always connect with us at aka.ms/codespacesfeedback. There you'll be able to have discussions with the product team, the engineering team, and more to not only tell us your thoughts on how things are going now, but also to request new features or ideas that you need from the service. Be sure to check that out, and we can't wait to chat with you again soon.